Hey, everybody, this is Chris
and Kathy
from PetAbility Podcast. We wanted to take a minute to thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate every listener and are grateful for this platform.
Please help us share our vision by subscribing to PetAbility Podcast through your favorite streaming app. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at PetAbility Podcast and share our content on social media.
You can also support the show by making a donation. Simply go to our website at petabilitypodcast.buzzsprout.com and click on the heart symbol at the top of the page. Thanks for listening.
We hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to PetAbility. I'm your host, Kathy Simons.
And I'm your host, Chris Cranston. Our podcast provides interviews and information to help your pets live their best lives.
Hi, Chris. How are you today?
Hey, Kathy. I'm great. Guess what I did this weekend?
Oh, gosh. Give me a hint. I mean,
it was a bucket list thing that wasn't even on my bucket list.
Oh, I can't wait to hear. Do tell. What is it?
I rode polo horses and played a little polo.
No.
I did. And it was a little bit scary, but these horses were amazing. Like, you could literally do anything to them because I did inadvertently. And they were still so patient. And my horse's name, she's a beautiful chestnut, was Wanda.
Wanda.
And when Wanda felt me falling off to the right, like I'm going down, she did a sharp turn and got me back in the saddle. And she was amazing. But the aftermath is
oh, no.
Yeah. I'm a little sore in places I don't want to mention.
You need to have the donut to sit on.
So I've spent the entire day up to this point stretching, hot showering, rubbing. Yeah.
Well, think about poor Wanda. What about Wanda?
Well,
somebody's got to
really, poor Wanda. I did. I thanked her and I apologized. So hopefully we're okay. What's been going on with you?
Well, I got a full-blown situation on over here, Chris. I don't know.
Yeah. Is it bad?
No, but listen to this. This happened to me a couple of years ago, actually. So this is the second time this has happened. My old house, every year in the fall, I'll get a nice, plant, a mum, put it out on my deck, And when I was at my old house, every day, this squirrel would come and dig up my plants and try to put a chestnut inside the planter.
Oh.
Right? But then he would decide he didn't fit. So then he would dig up the plant, take the chestnut, and leave. So at one point, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to bring the plant inside because every day I have to go out and then push my plants back down and put the soil back in, So I brought the plant in the house. And the next day, the squirrel knocked on my door.
What?
He was pissed. And he was jiggling my screen door. So I decided at that point I would get him his own planter, right? So that's how I fixed that situation at that house. I gave him his own planter and he buried his little chestnuts in it. And that was it.
Very creative.
It's happening at my new house, right? So now I have, long story short, his name is Squirrely. And he comes to my house.
Oh, that's not creative. That's not creative.
I know, but what are you going to do, right? What are you going to do? So he comes to my house every day. Same thing. He's trying to plant his chestnut in my mum's. And I'm in the window from a safe distance. I'm trying to shame him a little bit. Like, look at all your friends. They're way ahead of you with the planting, with the gathering of the nuts. Every day you're back with the chestnut. So same thing. I brought the plant in and I got him his own planter. But now the Blue Jays are trying to take over. I know it's a whole situation. So I'm a little worried about Squirrely. I'll keep you posted on him.
That'd be great.
He's got one chestnut in, but I don't know.
Don't read into that, people. Don't read into that.
He's got one chestnut in the planter. Oh. I'm a little worried about Squirrely, but I'll keep you posted. I'll keep you posted on that. I may have to put up some anti-Blue Jay fencing. I don't know.
Jays are tough. They're they're a little aggressive.
All right. Well, listen to what I've got for you today for topic.
Yeah.
We're talking about dog beds today because I think it's a very worthy topic for dogs. I mean, I need a good bed. You need a good bed. We all need a good night's sleep. So we're going to talk a little bit about the kinds and types of beds that we can use for our dogs, particularly for us as rehab practitioners. We often like to talk about things like the orthopedic beds, particularly the egg crate and the memory foam. But there are other types of beds out there.
So many types of beds.
Chris, what do you want to start with? What do you
Oh,
want to?
geez. I'm somewhat overwhelmed when I go into a store and see the selection and variety of beds. But I think we can help our audience to be a little bit more discerning in that they first need to watch their pet, right? And what does their dog naturally do? So what does that mean? That means, do they curl up? Do they stretch out? Are they a leaner? Does their head hang over the end? And to your point with older or disabled pets, the ease of getting in and out of them and the surface, the material that they're made of that accommodates them.
Yeah. And for some of our senior dogs, making sure that you can get in and out of that bed is really a big deal. Actually, the two types I see mostly for, on the market for the senior dogs, in particular, the egg crate and the memory foam, right? So the egg crate it's just like what it sounds like. It's those little valleys, dips and valleys in the bed. And that's really great for dogs in general because it helps distribute that weight over the mattress, over their body. So they're not having these pressure points on their hips or shoulders or elbows. And the spaces in between the egg crate are great because it allows airflow to get in there. And I think the one downside to it is it does seem to wear out a little faster than the memory foam. But the memory foam holds a little bit more heat, I think, than the egg crate does. It's nice you can get in and then it kind of contort. You kind of get in there and it just hugs you. And that feels great because I have a memory foam bed, so I know.
Yes.
But it holds the heat. And so, to your point about thinking about your dog's position, not only do they sleep with their, curled up, with their head up, with their head down, do they like a bolster? Is the bed big enough? Is the bed too small? But also, can they get in? Can they get out? What also is there, are they hot sleepers or cold sleepers? Is your dog pant at night? Or do they like to get under the covers? So maybe if they are a dog that likes to stay warm at night, maybe that memory foam really is a good choice for them. It holds the heat a little bit better. But if not, maybe that egg crate one is a little bit better because it allows for that airflow between those pockets.
And let's talk a little bit, you mentioned earlier pressure points. So, what are pressure points and why do we need to be concerned about that?
Oh, goodness. I mean, I guess I would say that those points are points of contact, really, when they're, if you're laying down. So if your dog is laying down, I would say those points of contact with the bed are typically hip, knee, shoulder, elbow, because if they're laying on their side. And that, what we want their weight to actually be distributed. We don't want all that weight on those particular points.
Right. So I think I always think back to people in my career with people, if we were to lie on a hard floor in any position and you focused on where you were feeling the floor, those would be pressure points. Yeah. So like the dog, if I'm on my side, my shoulder gets squished, my hip, I always feel, a lot of pressure in my hip. And that's actually what causes us to want to move, to adjust, because you feel that pressure point, the blood flow is actually, blanching out of that area because the weight of our skeleton squishing down through the tissue to the skin, it's
I'm making a face like, woo, that sounds awful.
That sounds, but we all need blood flow because then ultimately it could, you have a dog that's very thin or atrophied that lack of blood flow could lead to worst case scenario, like a pressure sore, which is a sore from the inside out. So that bone pushing from the inside onto the skin can cause that skin to break down and then it opens up and it's a very deep sore. It can get infected. They're hard to heal. And, that's an extreme scenario, but I think that happens unconsciously when we all sleep. If you notice that your dog is constantly shifting and getting up and turning over and, pacing in the night, I mean, there could be a number of reasons for that. But one of the first things I think of if my dog was medically healthy is, are they comfortable in their bed?
Right.
Because if you do have that distribution, they should sleep.
They should sleep comfortably.
Sleep like a puppy.
Exactly. And I mean, one of the reasons, I would say that one of the greatest reasons for having a really good bed for your dog is because your dog needs to get good rest, just like you and I do. The dog needs to be able to get to have REM sleep because REM sleep is the most restorative of the sleep. So we need to make sure that our dogs get a good, comfortable bed so that they can get good sleep. Just like you and I, our dogs need good sleep, and they don't sleep like necessarily like we do. They'll take shorter naps throughout the day, and then at nighttime we need to get them into a comfortable position so they can get into that deeper REM sleep, because that's the restorative sleep. Have you ever gotten a bed for your dog that's just completely like rejected? Like you've gone out to the store, I got this bed for Jacob a couple of years ago, and I thought it was the greatest thing, right? And I put it in the living room, and he completely rejected it. He just hadn't want nothing to do with it. So I threw it into the hallway thinking, oh, I'm just going to get rid of it. I'm just going to throw it away. But then he found it in the hallway, and he's like, why have you never given me this bed before? Right? So sometimes
it's a whole new thing.
It's a whole new thing, right? And it occurred to me, it was the placement. It was the placement of the bed for him. Was the bed in the living room? Was the bed too drafty, or was it near a heater, or was it something about the placement of that wasn't perfect for him? But then when it moved to the hallway, all of a sudden it was the greatest, newest bed, on the market.
So don't give up on it. You try moving it. And yeah, I've had many clients that have told me about the rejection of the bed, and it's always the most expensive bed that you could imagine. Right. They think, oh, it's expensive, it's got to be good, and my dog's going to love this. Yep. And they don't. But to your point, I think that's going back to observation, right? The animal typically wants to be with you. The animal wants to be able to see you. I heard a while back that a dog never lies someplace without intention. So, you'll notice that they'll be positioned in a place where they can, maybe scan the largest area of the house. So when you go from the kitchen to the living room, they can still keep an eye on you, that kind of thing. And then when you get out of sight, what happens? If they can, they get up and they try to follow you, right? Because they don't want you to be out of their sight. So yeah, that placement thing I think is critical.
Yeah. So then I learned, I was like, you know what, maybe I'll let my dog sort of pick where, I'll just take that bed and move it to several places and sort of let him pick where he would like to be, where he would like that bed to be. And my dog is a full out sleeper. Like, I don't know if you've ever, we don't typically let our dogs sleep in the bed, though. I like to have my dog have his own sleeping space, his crate and his own bed, so forth. But occasionally he'll get in the bed. My dog can expand like 4 times his size in the bed. It's amazing. He's only 25-pound pug, right? Or 22-pound pug. But when he gets in the bed, I don't know how he gets elongated.
It's like they morph. They morph into a blob.
I don't know what happens there, right? And then somehow I'm on the corner. I don't know what's happening.
I think many of our listeners can relate to that.
Right? Can relate to that. So, again, we're looking at not only your dog's position that they sleep in, where they like to sleep, and how they sleep. Are they side sleepers? Are they long out sleepers? My dog's long out, like he likes to lay flat out on his side. So I think for most people, I would say maybe go a little bigger than a little smaller, in those beds, because you want to just make sure that maybe a little bigger is a little better than smaller.
And give them that option. If 90% of the time they curl up, you don't want to have a bed that just accommodates that curled up position.
Right.
Because 10% of the time they want to stretch. And if they're confined, by a bolstered bed or in a little donut or something, they don't have that option. So, definitely. I wanted to also mention that, a good bed doesn't necessarily mean a soft bed, right? It has to have some substance to support. And it brings me again back to my PT days with people, and I'd often get asked, what's the best bed out there? What kind should I get? Whether it's a brand or, back in those days, it was before the whole memory foam Tempur-Pedic, craze. But, do you get a coil bed? Do you get a, blah, blah, blah. And there's no right answer. Yeah. And so again, you have to figure out, what's best for you as a person. We have to figure out what's best for our dogs. So some people really need a firm mattress, and other people want it soft and accommodating. I'm one of those soft and accommodating. I was like one of the last holdouts with my waterbed. Remember the waterbeds? How many decades ago was that? And, everybody else had moved on, but
wow. Not you.
My waterbed was the cat's meow, as they say. So, Kathy's talked about egg crate. She's talked about memory foam, and those are all great. There's polyfill, there's, just a flatter foam, type of mattress. Again, depending on the situation too. Maybe one bed in their crate and another bed, type of bed, even in the living room or what have you. So.
Right. And I think it's important to remember too, that when you get these beds, they do have most of them have a lifespan. Okay. So, if you get yourself your egg crate bed, you want to make sure that when you put your hand on that, you don't want to be able to feel that floor. You want it to be able to be sort of squishy. You don't want to feel the floor through that bed. So those are going to wear out at some point. So we really need to check those and make sure that if you're, prevent those pressure sores, make sure, at some point we need to replace the bed. So we need to keep an eye on that. Is the bed starting to wear? Is it starting to sag? Was it firm and now it's not firm? Those memory foam ones, they absolutely last longer. But any of those other ones, we really need to check and make sure that we don't need to replace them at some point. Or especially if your dog's been had a history of sleeping in that bed, and then all of a sudden they're like, meh. They're
right.
like, well, we have to check and make sure that, it's not worn out and maybe it needs to be replaced.
Yeah, definitely use the hand test, and if it feels hard, I agree with that. And I kind of think about it like shoes. Like if you're a runner, you can probably relate to this. You may have these, fantastic shoes, but if you're putting a lot of miles on them, or if they're sleeping in that bed a lot, it's going to wear out faster. And so maybe you put a time frame on it. I've seen some things like with spring cleaning, buy a new bed, get a new blanket, whatever it is, but, almost kind of put it on a cyclical sort of schedule where, because time flies and we don't always realize how long it's been. But if you check your dog's bed every 6 months or something like that, put it in your calendar and just make sure it's still doing the job.
Yeah. Seasonal, check in the summer.
Exactly.
The other thing that's important too for these dogs, you got to make sure that the covers are washable. That's just my opinion. Either the bed itself goes in the washing machine or the cover goes in the washing machine. It's got to be kept clean.
Yeah. Let's talk about those things that tend to be invisible to the eye that we're actually laundering, right?
Okay.
So the obvious is going to be dirt and hair. And some people think, well, I can get the hair off periodically, and you can, but you want to do a deep cleaning. But what we don't think of is oils and bacteria.
Right.
And, so it's in there.
It's in there.
And you got to get rid of it. Just think
this is why we wash our sheets.
Exactly. And hopefully more than, once a year or something
every 6
like
months.
that.
Yeah. Right. But that oil gets onto the bed, and it wears the bed, and then it also gets back on the dog.
Dander.
Yeah. It contributes to the dander. Exactly.
Yeah.
So we got to make sure that those are at least the covers, machine washable. Some of those smaller beds, actually, some of those can actually go right into, the washing machine. So check that out and make sure that you can keep them clean. Maybe we don't think about it as often because they're dogs and we're people, but
right.
But it really should be kept clean of dander and hair and
the waterproof.
Yeah.
If your dog has incontinence, that's will save a lot of replacement of beds and laundering if you can just take off that cover and it's sealed from the innards, so that egg crate, that memory foam. I don't even know how washable the memory foam is.
I don't think it is.
Of any size. You wouldn't be able, you'd be throwing that washer off balance or
big trouble.
Right. So, yes, they're usually vinyl, so that's going to contribute to a little bit of heat storage and so forth. But I think better than the alternative. You could put a few layers of blankets or topping, a mattress topper. Yes, between the pet and the vinyl cover, but at least it's going to prevent it from going down.
Oh, and if your dog's a digger too, because some dogs are they're going to go through that. So are you going to get yourself a bed that has a canvas cover that's got a little bit more durability to it?
Kevlar.
Sure or Kevlar, because you're a dog that's a super digger, right? To make
or
sure chewer, right? To make sure you get that. I have some clients that usually a lot of those beds come with an innard, like you said, that the mattress is wrapped in something. But I've actually had some clients be pretty intuitive. If they have a zipper on the bed, they'll actually take the memory foam out, wrap it in something, a plastic cover. And then put the canvas back on, because we don't want dog to have access to the plastic underneath. But if there should be an accident, and there was any leaking, we'd have some plastic covering that, on that part of the foam part of the bed. So those
Right.
are things to consider as well.
And I'm sure we've all experienced or heard tale of coming home to the white tornado that is the innards of the bed, right? It's like this blizzard that you talk about digger expanding in the bed. How does all that polyfill expand to? It's like 100 times what the size of the bed is. We've all experienced it with pet toys, all of that. So yeah, definitely be cognizant of that because you want to prevent the catastrophe.
The innards. Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you
don't
feel
want the
about
bed.
those?
I got one, Kathy. You don't want the bed innards to become your pet's innards.
No.
We don't want any foreign body surgeries out there.
No. Exactly. We don't want that. How do you feel, Chris, about these heated beds and the cool beds? Do you have any thoughts about the beds that come heated?
Oh, I definitely think that there's a time and a place, right?
Yeah,
so I think about my cat in particular with heated beds. A lot of cats and maybe small dogs, they get cold, fairly easily. So, having a warmer, either retaining their own heat, as we've alluded to, based on the material, or having something that can be heated up. But I think we need to all be careful when it comes to electric. So, I've had people ask me, I'll just put a heating pad, underneath my dog's mattress. No. Those are way too hot. They don't cool down over time. Anytime you're mixing a child or an animal with electricity, it can be an accident waiting to happen, so you don't want them chomping on the cord or getting tangled. So there are those considerations. But I think something that can be a very mild warmth or microwavable, so it's as hot as it's going to be when you put it in their bed, and then it's going to cool down from there. And what do you think?
I worry about some of the patients that are less mobile, and you're right. Some of these products if the bed doesn't cool down over time, or if it's too hot, are they able to move off of it? Or some of these patients that have decreased sensation, or some of these patients that have things like degenerative myelopathy, do they even know that the bed is hot? Because they even have that sensation that the bed is hot. So I think you have to be very cautious with the electric bed. But I think you're right. I think in some instances, I think that a little bit of gentle warming is good, especially for arthritic patients. I think in that morning time, when they wake up in the morning, that's when I find them to be the most stiff, and maybe some of that gentle warming may be appropriate for them, especially, first thing in the morning when they get up. But it needs to be under supervision, and if you plug it in, then you need to be around to be there and make sure your dog can get off of it and the dog doesn't chew the cord. So I think there could be a place for those. I think there could be a place for that. I actually have that experience, the opposite, the cool bed, the canine cool bed. Actually, I think I like the canine cool bed. My first pug, as he got older, and he turned about 13 or 14, he would get really hot at night. And I imagine, a lot of these senior dogs have difficulty with thermal regulation, when they're older. And so he was a hot sleeper, and he loved that canine cool bed, and accidentally bought the extra large, which was actually nice because then I could lay on it with him. And it really did. It was a nice, gentle cooling. It really did cool off the skin, and it was comfortable. And what I did with it is I put a little blanket on one side and left the other side with the cover of the sheet. And so he could move on and off of that to get either cooler or less cool, if you wanted to. So I actually had a good experience with that. I think you got to be cautious with the canine cool bed if you have a digger, because that plastic covering, there's like a little foam inside. You put water in, you suck all the air out of it. And that plastic, if they were digging, they could potentially rip that. So I got one with a cover. I got a cover for it. Yeah. And it was nice.
Yeah. I know I do a little bit of agility with my dogs, and a lot of the athletic dogs need the cooling beds between runs or whatever the situation may be, if they're getting really hot with the athletic activities, or it can certainly be seasonal too. You do something more heat retaining in the wintertime and more cooling in the summertime, especially if you don't have AC or that kind of thing. So yeah, like I said, definitely there's a place and time. I want to emphasize what you said about the arthritis, because generally arthritis does respond to warmth, but again, very mild, gentle warmth. They can't, tell us. And usually arthritis is equated with aging, and with aging also is the lack of thermal regulation. And, so there's a whole thing. So.
There's so many factors to consider here. You know, it almost makes me think as I'm talking to you, if I'm going to go out and buy a bed, maybe I should make a list. You know, one, my dog likes to lay flat out. He also likes to lay with his head up. He gets hot at night, so maybe, you know, the cool bed is for him. You know, he likes the flat bed rather than the round donut bed, you know, and maybe just make a list, and then I can go to the store and I can kind of cut down or see what meets my criteria. My dog has arthritis. Maybe I should get him something that has a gentle warming bed, you know, but gentle warming and so forth. So maybe make a list before you even go out to, or before you even get online to see what you want, to just narrow down that list, because there's so many pets to go through. And I think that you and I had talked about this before. The other thing is, I think you may have mentioned this, just because it's an expensive bed doesn't necessarily make it the greatest bed out there.
Or the right bed for your pet.
Or the right bed for your pet. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, so make a list of what your criteria is for your dog to get that bed. And that might help you cut down some of your, you know, the narrow down some of the choices, I think, when you go shopping for your dog.
I think the checklist is a great idea. Also, you could bring your dog and, you know, have them pick it out, you know, by putting it on the floor of the store or what have you. One of the advantages of actually supporting your local pet supply store as opposed to getting it online.
Right.
But also keep in mind that your pet may not behave the same way in the store as they do at home. But, you know, it's going to give you one more data point. You know, if you have two beds that meet the criteria on your checklist, then, you know, see which one they like. I've had that experience, not me personally, but clients where I'm working, they have the lovely, very large memory foam beds, and the dogs go in and, you know, they just plop right down, make themselves at home. And many a client has then asked, what kind of bed is this? Where did you get it? And purchased it for $100+, bring it home, and it's no go. You know, I like this bed when I'm at the vet, but at home, I've never laid on this before. What is this
acts
thing?
like it's never seen that.
Yeah, exactly.
Where did this bed come from?
Exactly.
Why would you do this?
So hopefully through this show, we're helping you guys make some sound choices.
Right.
But
and then it made me think too, when we were talking about pressure points on dogs. I'm sure you've seen this product, Chris, and I'm going to put this out there because it may be an alternative for helping dogs when they're laying down. Because some of our dogs, no matter what we do, are going to just migrate towards the cool kitchen floor, right? Uh-huh. And probably for that very reason. One, the tile is cooler, maybe. It feels good. Or maybe you're washing dishes in the kitchen. Your dog wants to lay down there with you in the kitchen rather than go lay on their bed. We should check out a product called dog legs. Have you seen the dog legs?
Oh, yes. Love the dog legs.
I know. It was such a brilliant idea, too, because initially she had just made these like elbow padding to go over the dog's elbow pads to prevent these hygromas in dogs. And so, but it's evolved over the time since I remember when they first came out with it. It's evolved quite a bit. And the thing is, they're just like elbow sleeves. They come up over the dog's elbow, up over the back, and then they Velcro together so that the elbow pads don't slide off. And so the good news is wherever your dog goes and wherever they lay down, the elbow pads are already on. So you can lay down at the
protection.
Vet. Exactly. You can lay down at the vet, you can lay down at the groomer, you can lay down on the kitchen floor. So inevitably, again, you know, your dog may just be like, I just like the kitchen floor, but we need to protect their joints. And I think the dog legs is actually a good alternative or a good product for helping us with that.
And, you know, talking about retaining heat, if they have arthritis in those elbows, it helps to keep them warm by having that wrap. You know, it's kind of like us, you know, we go out and play basketball, you put on the neoprene sleeve. It actually, you know, keeps your knee a little bit warmer and helps prevent injury that way. You talked about the hard tile floor or wood floor. Yeah, that's not comfortable. You know, imagine yourself laying on that. But also, even on the rugs, like many rugs are wool or a similar material. And just the little bit of movement as your dog's looking around and such, they're shifting slightly. And that skin on their elbows has the potential for abrasion. And especially if they're a large dog, that's a lot of weight. And if they're, you know, laying on that carpet, you know, 10 hours a day, then it could break down, you know, get a little, friction causes a little wound there. So,
So I'm a fan of the dog legs. And, the thing that I think is the most brilliant part of it is that she created it so it doesn't slide. Because anytime you try to put anything on your dog like that, the potential for just a sliding right off, is inevitable, really.
And they're comfortable. I prescribe them many a time.
Right.
And the dog doesn't even, seem to react to them at all in a negative way. It's like, oh, okay. And they're loose enough that they can lie down comfortably. They can stand up in them, but they, to your point, they don't fall down. So they can still, they're not binding, I guess I should say, restrictive of any movement.
Restrictive, which is always important for us as rehab people. We're always making sure that we don't want anything to restrict range of motion or movement in these dogs. Chris, I can't, is dog legs with 2 G's, so people can go to that DOGLEGGS. GGS, dog legs, and check that out because they've got a really good product there for protecting.
And they've been around a while, and they've come out with a lot of different products over time, but that's one of my faves.
Yeah, it's one of my go-tos as well. It's one of my go-tos. Inevitably, somebody will say, my dog's not going to lay down there. She's going to lay down on the floor. She likes to lay down and put her belly on the cold tile.
Or wrap themselves around the toilet. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. that toilet is a cooling device.
It's cool. And then you can get a drink, I guess, after. But it's cool and it's cold and the tile is cold and it probably feels good to some dogs, especially your northern breeds, some of your huskies and your bigger, hairy big dogs are probably going to feel more comfortable in that cool, and again, maybe that's when you decide, okay, maybe the canine cool bed or the cooler bed is, the way to go for me. But again, just check out those dog legs. I think that's a wonderful product. Well made. Been using them for a long time. So I'm happy with them as well.
And maybe we can get somebody from Dog Legs on the show one of these days.
Oh, I would love that.
Wouldn't that be cool?
It would. And I'd love to hear her story because I remember when I first met her. Now I don't want to date myself, but
Oh, go ahead. Date yourself.
Okay. I think I met her when she first came out with it in 2002 and 2003. It's been so exciting to see how the product has developed and changed and she's continually improving, on this product. I think it's about as improved as it can get. I don't think there's any more. It's about as good as it could. But then coming out with another line of other lines of other things for other, conditions. So the wrist, the hock, things like that. So they have more than just the elbow coverings, there's some other products as well. So I'd love to hear her thoughts on how she got started and what motivated her and how did she come up with these ideas, Why didn't I invent that,
And we've talked about this before too. It's like necessity's the mother of invention, A lot of the products in the canine rehab world have come along because there was a need and it wasn't out there. And so somebody took it upon themselves to just start entrepreneurially engineering things and, figuring it out because a lot of times it was their own dog, that had this problem. And, it's like, well, how am I going to fix this? There isn't anything out there. So what can be done? So, I was just going to say, we'll be sharing more of those stories as we go. I think
we'll share some more. We'll see if we can get Dog Legs on the show. I bet they will.
So let's talk a little bit about just kind of different types of mattresses. You alluded to that, like in your checklist. I think, have you noticed that some of the people in your circle have resorted to human mattresses, meaning like a child's crib mattress or a futon because they have this giant breed dog and they can't find a mattress big enough?
Right. Yeah.
So we do have a lot more options out there now in terms of size, but I think those really extra large giant breed dogs, there's still a bit of a problem with that. So definitely, consider, that as well. And then, we've talked about, well, do they like their head up? It's different than a bolstered, which has sides, right? Those tend to be pretty abrupt, but the, dog that just likes to rest their head on the pillow or what have you, they actually make these beds that just have a rather shallow incline, up to the side that isn't so severe, if you will. So that's kind of a nice option. And have you heard of the pup tent?
No, I have not heard of the pup tent.
I know. I hadn't either, but I was looking online and lo and behold, I saw one. So it's kind of crate-like, right? They go into their little cave and, it's the bed and then it has, sides or a teepee or igloo, kind of over it. So they're yurt. Yeah. So, they feel secure in there and safe. So that's an awesome kind of thing. So if your dog,
That sounds like fun for a little dog too, maybe just a place or a quiet, safe space for those small dogs, to retreat to. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then if your dog's a burrower, likes to get under the blankets and things, there are those that have kind of the built-in blanket over the top, kind of like a sleeping bag that they can.
I've seen those.
Yeah, nest into. So one, it keeps them warmer, make them feel safer. My Baxter, he likes to feel pressure and confined, and that's when he feels the safest. So he definitely is a burrower. So
little dachshunds, that's what they want to
right. That's what they were bred for. Burrow in, buddy.
Burrow.
What about the elevated, like cot type beds?
I can't believe we didn't cover that. Yeah. I think those are good for an outside option too. I have a couple of clients who have them outside, so they're off the cement.
Or the damp grass.
Right? Yeah. So I think that those are good. Or, I actually have a few clients that will sometimes use them alternatively for patients, for their dogs, if they have a little bit of incontinence. So maybe they rotate being on that cot while they're cleaning, the other one or whatever. So sometimes they'll use that in rotation with the beds. But I like it for outside. I like that they're up off the ground or up off the wet grass,
So, I hadn't thought about it though for incontinence. That's great. So like the urine kind of runs through, or even if they have a bowel movement, then you can kind of rinse it off. And it's not it's not sitting, next to them because it's kind of sifting through. That's a great idea and can be cleaned easily.
I don't know how supportive it is. As far as, pressure source and so forth. But I think outside, particularly, or for some of these dogs that are incontinent or rotating them as they're, have incontinence. So I like them actually.
Yeah. So I think it's cooler because the air flows around them, so when it's warmer outside, they get that circulation of air under and over. So that's awesome. And then like we alluded to, anything that's hard or damp, it's better than the alternative. Like you said, outside, the ground, cement. And then also just being up a little bit, if they're a smaller dog and they're in a pack and what have you, and the, big dogs are running around, they can climb up on their cot and, kind of
claim
observe,
superiority.
That's right. Observe from a little bit higher position. But then we also need to talk about those dogs that do have mobility issues. That may not be an option. They can't get on and off of that easily, just like they couldn't get in and out of a bolstered bed easily or a really soft donut type bed easily. Maybe if they're fairly immobile, we can place them on it or in it. Yep. But, those are considerations.
Can you get your dog in and out? Can you get them in? Can they get themselves in and out, or can you help
which would be ideal
in and out? Exactly.
Yeah. And so on the bolster bed, if they do have any mobility issues, definitely 3 sides, versus 4, so they don't have to climb up and over the side. But then also, we've talked a lot about the surface itself. And if it's really soft and billowy and clumpy and uneven, if your dog has any sort of balance issues, which oftentimes this goes hand in hand, right? You have some weakness or what have you, then that leads to issues with balance and agility and coordination. And even without having a neurological diagnosis, think about older people, right? They're prone to falling because it happens with aging, and there's just a number of factors that are involved in that. But, having a more predictable surface of the bed and something a little bit firmer from which to stand up. So back to your original comment about memory foam and egg crate. Egg crate's a little bit bumpy, but yet it's predictable. And the memory foam is definitely, a more solid, kind of thing versus getting wrapped up in all kinds of, blankets and polyfill and such. So. Are you laughing at me? Because you can see me. Our listeners can't see me.
No, I'm not.
I'm talking with my hands right now, and I'm really into this. Yes,
very into the topic, and I am too. Before, I think we covered just about everything, but I would like to say one thing. I don't want to discriminate against the cat people. And you can use the same rules that apply to getting the dog bed as you can for the cat people, and cats need good sleeping surfaces as well. Now, cats, of course, are different about their sleeping, and the same thing. Got to just figure the same thing out for your cat. So just keep in mind that cats need a good sleeping surface as well, especially as they age and on their joints. They're going to need a nice, good bed as well, and they need good sleep too. They need a good night's sleep as well. So
absolutely, and any animal,
my cats,
for that matter. I think it goes without saying that the cats are different.
Cats are absolutely different.
I think any
That's a
cat
whole
owner
show.
knows that their cats are different and superior to any
Exactly.
dog that's out there. So
that's a whole other show.
That's
really.
a whole other
Other show. But I think you can use some of the rules that we've laid out here for the dogs, that you can probably lay out a lot of those rules for your cats as well. But just keep in mind that cats, they need a good sleeping surface as well.
I think we also need to touch on, kind of this concept of careful what you wish for, because, if the bed is truly right and comfortable, sometimes they will choose to no longer sleep with you in bed at night. And many owners, want that. The bed is for the daytime and, in the living room and such. But they may be sleeping with you until you get that perfect bed for them. And then they're like, see ya.
That's how you know it's perfect.
Yeah, I want my own space, yeah. So, but really it can also be an incentive to stay off the bed or off the furniture if that's something you don't want. If you find a comfortable bed for them, then they're going to be much more likely to gravitate to that versus up on the sofa, for example.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I think we could wrap it up. I think we covered the beds. Covered the beds. So,
well, I look forward to hearing more about Squirrely as time goes on.
I'm worried about Squirrely. I'll keep you posted on that, and hopefully we can follow up the show with a guest from Dogleg. So, thank you everybody for joining us, and please join us again for our next show. Thank you.
Thank you. Out.
Bye. Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed our show. Follow us on Facebook or on Instagram at PetAbility Podcast.
For more information about Kathy's books and living with blind dogs, please go to enableyourpet.com. Thank you, and please tune in next time.